So I welcome you to the second day of our conclave. So we have just put together a presentation together of the seniors as well as the present batch about the learnings or whatever the earlier batch had in China and what we actually had in China. So we have put together a presentation. So we'll be showing you all the learnings that we had. So to begin with, let's. So to introduce a batch and a program. So the key highlights of our program is about the program duration is 14 months. Average work experience to get in is 5+ years. There is an international immersion at Ocean University of China, Qingdao, for 2 months. And there will be a research project in China and an international internship in China for 2 months. So the total China tenure is for 4 months, which will include 2 months of internship and 2 months of research, along with the various subjects in China, for example, we'll be studying about Chinese language, Chinese culture, Chinese consumer behavior, China and world economy, and Chinese capital market, and the business excursions, which is a part of the research thing. So our previous batch actually initiated and executed an international yoga day at Qingdao in China, so you can actually see the pictures there. They also did a research project about consumer survey at Starbucks China. So that is one of the things which they actually did. So this is about the international internships that they actually had. These are the various companies where we actually did the international internship. So another few companies. So the internships were covered in a wide range of areas, right, ranging from manufacturing to actually legal firms, marine, electronics, logistics, all the areas. As far as the area of internships are like I just said, consultancy, operations, supply chain, information systems, and human resources. This is a slide we actually put together to show about how the shift of the economics, the center of gravity for the economics is concerned, right? How the center of gravity for economics is actually been shifting. So if you look at 1080, it was somewhere in the area of Pakistan and India. And then it actually started shifting towards the western part of the world towards the 1950s. But if you can see the trend, it's actually coming back to the eastern and India and China and the Pakistani area, so the Asian area. So that is a trend that we actually see. As far as the key economic share of the world GDP in purchasing power parity is concerned, so right now it is US and China who are leading from the forefront. And we are somewhere around 6 to 7%. But come 2050, we actually see China and India actually being the leaders in this particular area. So as far as the trends are concerned, so we actually see a lot of trends coming in. One is like the saturation in consumption in Western economies, diminishing population growth, accumulation of high savings, investment in infrastructure development, rapid urbanization, growth in income level, growth in domestic consumption, and highly skilled talent from emerging markets, leading global multinationals, and more industrializations. So these are some of the trends that we actually see coming forward. As for now, just going for the social cultural aspects, we just wanted to talk about the Hofstede 6D model, like how the Western culture and the Chinese or the Indian culture is different or similar in some aspects. So speaking about power distance, what we generally mean is like a person who is from actually a lower strata of the society in terms of his economic status. How low does he actually feel in terms of his social acceptance of that he actually belongs to the lower status. So that is the power distance. Individualism is an aspect like how much does a society actually give importance to the individualistic aspects rather than the familial aspects, which we certainly see the difference between in the Eastern and the Western cultures. Masculinity is the aspect of the society where how much society actually gives an importance to doing what it likes, whether expressing that masculine, saying that I am the person who is actually going to drive forth the society. Uncertainty avoidance is an area where it talks about like how much ready is the society to accept ambiguous situations. Like for example, or do we actually believe that this is the box where I am sitting in and that is what my world is, or am I actually okay to look outside of the box? So there is a difference between our Chinese culture, our Indian culture, and the Western culture. Long-term orientation is something which talks about saving for tomorrow and not only about thinking about today. So there is a difference between Western culture and how the Indian culture and the Chinese culture actually thinks about this. So we'll be having a comparison in the next slide how actually that comparison is. And indulgence is how much actually is the society ready to splurge its money and to indulge in luxurious activities. So that is one of the factors. So if you look at the comparison, we can see for the power distance, like it's a comparison between US, India and China. So the power distance is really very low in US. So like for example, a person who is a sweeper in US is not going to really feel low when he actually talks to a CEO. But if you see the condition in India, it will be the person who is actually a sweeper will feel that okay, I am actually belonging to a lower strata of the society, and he is actually going to be conscious about his social status. Individualism, like US is really very high, like they really pay a lot of attention to individualistic characteristics rather than the familial characteristics and caring more about the family. Whereas the trend is more in India and China. Masculinity, we are like somewhat equal. Uncertainty avoidance is about like we are also like somewhat equal in that aspect. In terms of long-term orientation, we can see a clear difference here, whereas the Chinese is like it's almost touching 90, whereas India and US are somewhat below them. So that talks about the saving characteristics. The Chinese believe a lot in saving. Like it has in China, the banks have almost like the highest savings rate, in the entire world. So that is one of the things. Indulgence, we can see, again, US is actually leading in this particular aspect. They believe, living on credit. They do not believe in saving for tomorrow. Whereas China and India, you can actually see the difference.
Sorry, what's the source of the data? Is that the data or is it some other survey?
This is from Hofstede's site, website.
So moving on to the next part, so we want to talk about Rabindranath Tagore and his connections with China. So we generally believe that the Chinese are, they regard Buddhism as one of their, main contributions of India towards China. But apart from Buddhism, it is Rabindranath Tagore which they actually remember for. And one of the words which has been said by Wang Bangui of Peking University is that Chinese may have the highest regards for Buddha, but apart from him, the Indian name best known to them is Rabindranath Tagore. And like from Shakyamuni, we have enjoyed more of our reverent godliness, and from Tagore, we have enjoyed a tangible humanness that was noble and admirable, and arguably the first account in English of the poet's visit to China and the reparations. Also Tan Yun Shan, who was one of the best friends of Mao, and who was actually been influenced by Rabindranath Tagore. He has actually spoken a lot about that. One of those few words are like, our two countries, both situated in the bright and glorious continents of Asia, are just like the two wheels of a carriage or two wings of a bird, and even better to say like the two hands and feet or the two ears and eyes of a person. So he clearly mentions that China and India are complementary, and they have to work together to actually achieve things. Moving ahead, so all these aspects were actually being discussed yesterday, just going over it. Various Chinese negotiations. Now, Guangxi is the personal connection. Now, the Chinese believe that any person's skill or education is not that much worthy, but it is his personal connections which is really going to work for him. So the Chinese really work hard in maintaining and building personal communication and personal relationships, right from their college, school, working relationships. They actually believe in actually building personal relationships. The Zhongyuan is the intermediary. What it means is like the Chinese had an history of actually being taken over by the Japanese, and they believe that for any negotiation, they need to have an intermediary to make any business deal. So if you are actually visiting China, they actually want that you actually have an intermediary who is actually Chinese or who is knowledgeable about the Chinese culture, and they want to interact with that person rather than directly communicating with you. The Shengyu Dengi is the social status. What the Chinese society is very hierarchical in terms of the various statuses that they have. So when you actually send a business delegation, they actually want that the person who's actually going to communicate with the Chinese counterpart are equal to the status and they have the complete knowledge of the subject on which they are going to speak. So that is one of the aspects that they are going to look into. Renki Haxi is the interpersonal harmony. The Chinese believe that the personal relationships are built over long term, they are not built over short term. So for each and every task, even for a small task, you actually have to spend a lot of time negotiating with them. It is not just that you sit over a cup of coffee and you actually make your deal. So you really have to go through an entire a round of negotiations and multiple rounds of negotiations to actually go through any business deal. So that's one of the things. The Zenki Guinan is the holistic thinking. What they actually mean is that in the Western culture, we actually have a tradition of going step by step in terms of negotiation. So what we say is that, okay, I'm going to negotiate for this first part, then the second part and the third part. But what the Chinese actually believe is that for them the negotiation is not complete until everything is completed. And they are even going to bring points, something from the earlier negotiation to actually say that, okay, I want to again discuss on the earlier point that was being discussed. And they want to look at the negotiation in terms of holistic terms rather than small parts. The Zhejiang is a thrift. What it means is that the Chinese are actually a society which actually believes in saving a lot. So when you actually negotiate with them, they actually make sure that they actually take you to the lowest terms in terms of negotiation. And so that's one of the things. For the Mianzi, or like the face of social capital, the Chinese culture actually believes that when you are actually having a negotiation with a person in the open or open conference, the Chinese do not believe that you are going to point any mistake about that person in the open. They believe that if you actually do not agree with the person, you actually confide with him in private rather than saving in open. So it's like the face savior and saving the face of the person. So that's one of the Mianzi thing. And the Chiku Nailo is the endurance or relentlessness. This is one of the cultural characteristics of Chinese, where the Chinese believe that whatever goal they have to pursue it relentlessly, and they are going to pursue it relentlessly after right till the end. Whatever they believe, the negotiation, if they believe that this is the deal that I want to have, they are going to pursue it relentlessly. So that's one of the things. In terms of the economic comparison, if you see the population, what the general trend that we see here is that the China is 4 or 5 times in most of the parameters that we see. So if you see in the GDP nominal terms, so it's 2.4 trillions, and the China is almost like 10.35 trillions, 4 to 5 times. Also, the other factors we can also see the same trend being following. One interesting aspect is about the military expenditures. It's like almost 45 billion, where it's like 166 billion. So that's one of the differences between both of us. In terms of the India-China GDP comparison, we can see the trend of how the GDP is really going. And one difference we can actually see here is in the year 2001, when actually China entered into WTO. How the spurt in the GDP has actually happened from there, from 2001 to 2007. So that really talks about the access that China received for the various resources that WTO actually gave to them. So that's one of the clear trend that we can actually see from here. In terms of the currency, the Chinese yuan to INR, we can actually see the trend. So it's actually a growing trend in this particular aspect. In terms of the total trade, the import and export, we can actually see India's trade with China. So there is a clear trade deficit. It's in about in million of USD 80,000. So what we see here is that there is an opportunity for trade growth in terms of exports for India. So we are really have a huge deficits here. So we can really have an opportunity for exporting. So the current trade is that we are exporting a lot of raw material, and the Chinese are actually processing it and exporting it to other countries. What India can actually do here is that it can concentrate on building more manufacturing capabilities where it can export finished goods rather than sending raw materials to China. So that's one of the trends where India actually has to improve on. In terms of technological aspects, if you can see the research and development expenditure as a percent of GDP, China is really a lot ahead of India, and India leads a lot of improvement. We are somewhere around like 0.8%, whereas China is like 1.8% of GDP. So, so that's one of the trend that is coming here. Moving ahead, so we spoke about this yesterday. So we spoke about this yesterday, like the number of students who are actually being returning from US back to China. So China actually has the highest number of students in US, highest student community in the US, but there's a growing trend of students coming back to China and pursuing opportunities in China. So that's what we wanted to show, one of the growing trends. So this is a byproduct of the earlier slides where the research was actually very low in India and in China where it was low, high. And you can actually see the patent applications of the residents and the scientific and technical journal articles. China is really way ahead of India in this particular aspect. So high technology exports also, like what I mentioned earlier, as a percent of manufactured export, again China is leading here from the forefront, while India is somewhere around 5%, whereas China is around like 25-30% here. So another good opportunity for India. As far as doing business in China, like 69% of the companies actually faced business in administrative licensing in India and China. So the next slide we'll be discussing about the ease of doing business in India and China. Like where do we actually stand in terms of doing business? So like 69% of the participants actually faced some administrative and licensing difficulties in India and China. So that's one of the problem faced.
Is that
So
India and China or just China?
so this is China. Sorry about that. This is China. So these are the various problems faced. So various problems like product approval delays, that constitutes almost 52%. Operation expansion delays 49%, and the lowest is like around 28% routine activity delays. So these are some of the problems for cost increase, competition with Chinese companies, administrative licensing, human resources, talent recruitment and retention, intellectual property right enforcement, uneven enforcement, non-discrimination, national treatment, transparency, standards and conformity assessment, and foreign investment restrictions. So these are some problems. For the cost increase, we actually see, for the year 2012 and 2013, that it was 88%, and like the human resources cost is one of the most increasing costs, almost 92% increase. And for competition, you can see like from the Chinese state-owned enterprises, it's 67% of competition in 2012, whereas it has increased to almost like 75% in like 2013, and all other factors being here. So let's move on to the improvements made by China. So like, what are some of the improvements that have been done? So China actually made paying taxes less costly for companies in Shanghai by reducing the social security contribution rate. China also made paying taxes easier for companies by enhancing the electronic system for filing and paying taxes and adopting new communication channels within its taxpayer services. China improved its credit information system by introducing credit information industry regulation, which guarantees borrowers' right to inspect their data. And China made enforcing contracts easier by amending its civil procedure code to streamline and speed up all court processing proceedings. So these are some of the improvements that have been made by China. So in terms of differentiators of like the high performing and low performing MNCs, so it speaks about what are the key aspects that the high performing MNCs and the low performing MNCs have. So one of the widest gap that we actually see at 63% is like the clear roles for top managers in strategy execution. So that is one of the strategies that you actually have to follow in China, that you need to have a clear goal whenever you actually work in China. And have a clear China strategy that actually comes in second. So that's a clear differentiators and markers of like which actually key aspects you have to pay attention in when you actually go in China. So for Indian companies, what are the do's and the don'ts? We spoke about the Chinese culture, where the Chinese pay a lot of attention to the personal relationships, and that's actually been reflected in this particular side, where it actually sees that for companies to avoid opportunism, like have a long-term strategic view and not to have a short-term view, have a right value proposition, partnership-based relationship. Chinese believe that to have a long-term partnership view, not a one-sided relationship. Localization. Chinese believe that if you are actually operating in China, you have to learn the Chinese culture and the Chinese traditions. Starbucks is a classic example where what happened to a company which tried to bring Western culture into China, and the results are to be seen. Cultural context, again, like develop strengths in the Chinese language and cultural sensitivity to the cultural issues. The do's are about the running programs to sensitize the Indian IT industry on specific requirements of the Chinese market. Open a Chinese desk, like China is an important aspect, it has to recognize that, and provide access to the Chinese companies. Government support, work with the government on both sides to increase the spread of Chinese language and culture. Ministry affairs, map important ministries in China that can help with policy intervention and favorable messaging in China to influence business. Map companies, draw a list of potential customers in China from outreach effort. Map these companies and establish connections at appropriate levels. So these are some of the things that our Indian companies should actually do to spread in China. So next part is Anmo will actually take it.
Good morning everyone, and thanks Aditya. So just in continuation of what Aditya has just told, these are some of the Indian companies in China. And you can see almost all the sectors are there: automobile, aviation, banking, then chemical, engineering, pharma, and trading. So almost all kind of companies are present in China, all kind of Indian companies are present in China. And similarly, if we see Chinese companies in India, so again, automobile, consumer electronics, manufacturing, power, telecom, trading. So the presence of both the countries' companies is there in both the countries. So it shows how business people are interested in both the countries, in Chinese in India and Indians in Chinese. So next is China's gain, India's pain. That's a very famous quote nowadays. 2 months back our Prime Minister said this. So how it actually looks. When China stock market got down by 35%, and according to Stephen Roach, former Asia chairman, the crash landing scenario of the Chinese economy is vastly overblown. Furthermore, the effect of the stock market crash in China is going to have hardly any effect on the real economy there. Only about 7% of Chinese households are active in the stock market. So how does it show on the actual economy? That's the question. So the slowing down, was it really a slowdown or just an illusion? Because the Chinese economy is so vast that even if Indian GDP growth rate is better than China, still China can add around 3 Indian economies every year because of the vastness of the economy. So why China is slowing down? That's the kind of reality check that we can see, that decline in demand from European countries and US, less domestic consumption and debt within the banking system, economic reform to convert investment-led export-based economy to consumption-based economy. China is caught in structural reform, and by design they are slowing down the economy. So maybe that is intentional, not because of the external factors, but due to their internal factors, and that may be intentional by the Chinese government. They have been the fastest growing economy for last 20 years. That trend we can show how they have from last 2 decades, how they are performing in their GDPs and all. And we can see that by in 2011 it almost crossed United States and as well as Japan. What was Chinese reaction about the statement? India would be mistaken in assuming that the recent economic slowdown and stock market troubles in China will be to its gain. The recent troubles in China did not signify a hard landing for the Chinese economy, but were merely a part of its ongoing efforts to restructure the economy. As we said, that they are structuring to the consumption-based model, and they are reducing the export-based model of their economy. So that's the future. That we can predict China into the future. How the national economies are projected. You can see by 2025 it will be equivalent to US, and by 2050 it will be far more ahead than US. So China, that it's leading the new economy, as we are talking since yesterday. How it is leading the new economy? E-commerce sales are much higher than US and India, and internet penetration. At yesterday also we talked about it. Internet penetration is too high in comparison to other countries. this is what we talk about today. I mean, make in India. Can we do it without China? So what we have to do to actually get this make in India. So develop infrastructure, strengthening export competitiveness, encourage more liberalization in trade, review the fiscal system, encourage entrepreneurship culture, and land reform and encourage FDI. So these are some of the key points that we have to look to make this campaign Make in India successful. So what we see as that India and China have to win it together. As China's president also said, when China and India speak with one voice, the whole world will notice. China and India will act as twin engines in spearheading economic growth in the region. And here comes the relevance of our program in this, PGPX, where we get actually the practical exposure of working in Chinese companies, working in Indian companies with relation to China, and then apply it to all the real-time problems. So that's where our program is relevant to this India and China business. So with this, I thank you all for listening to us. Thank you so much.
Seek some feedback.
Oh, all right.
So any question or anything?
Yeah, I didn't understand all of the slides you had, where you showed that HR is growing 80% and 90%. Is that year on year? Salaries are nearly doubling
Yes.
every year?
There are reports which are saying that China is paying its expats the highest in the world,
Expats is a small percent.
and that's the why the cost is increasing, and they're recruiting at all levels.
So the total HR cost of every company is doubling
increasing.
80%
Yes.
year on year.
Yes.
But in that case, they will soon price themselves out of the market.
Well, maybe not. Maybe not. Maybe they're adopting the same method which they did with technology. Host an Apple in your factory facility, learn the ways, and start manufacturing the same Apple with the local Chinese Apple, and one cannot differentiate between the two. What we are probably a short-term strategy which they're doing is bringing in as many people from all over the world to understand managerial systems.
What percentage of HR costs are expat costs?
Well, that is to be known. We don't have figures for that.
May I suggest that may I offer one small piece of information that comes from a high-placed Hong Kong source, with ears to the ground, that in the textile industry, the level of wages in 5 years has gone up by about 65% in 5 years. And that is somebody who, it comes from a company that makes its business out of all this. That is the, I would say, a more realistic scale and not the slightly exaggerated figures which I submit you used. And if I may add, any Indian who wants to correctly pronounce a Chinese term, a Chinese language phrase, simply put it down in Devanagari script, because Indian languages are phonetic. And then you would not make the kind of mistakes that you'll be making with all the Chinese phrases you have used. Guanxi is Guanxi, fine. Chirku is Chirku, it has been said right. The other phrase that you use, if you bring up this slide, I will tell you. Sorry? Zhongjian. You see, don't go by the stupid spelling system, the organization system that the Chinese are now stuck on, which is Zhongjianren. The ZH is actually Zhong, and you have to get it right. If to a Chinese you say it like this, he will not know what you are talking about.
Sure.
I mean, the whole object of communication, I hope you don't mind my pointing that, the whole object of communication is to be understood. If what you say is not understood by the other, if what I say is not understood by the audience, then I'm stupid because I failed in my effort. Please use Devanagari script, and that will teach you the exact right pronunciation. Life is all about small details.
Sure.
You master detail, you solve all your problems.
Sure.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks.
I have a suggestion.
Sure.
On one slide, you have a list of Chinese companies where you have worked, right?
Yeah.
Internship. Can you go to that page? It had Hanma Cable and Hire and certain other. Yeah, these are all Qingdao-based companies, Hanma and Hire. So, one simple exercise I recommend highly is before you go to China, try to map out their industries. Which are the top telecom companies in China, which are the top banks in China, which are the supermarket chains in China, the common sort of household names, and get familiar with them, because that gives you a lot of insight into how to relate to them and how to explain the Indian economy to the Chinese. And I think as an MBA student, that's a very interesting exercise, just to map out 20 industries and understand who are the top 5 Chinese players. Because one of the biggest challenges that Indian management today faces is they can't relate these names to actual businesses. They don't know, if they see a Chinese name, whether it's a big company, whether it's a small company, whether it's a state-owned company, whether it's a private company, listed company, they can't make sense because half the name is in Chinese and there are some letters, so they just go by the letters and get confused. So as students, what you can do is, this is a very interesting exercise. You can distribute it and say, okay, there are 20 industries, so and you can get it from open source, so Wikipedia type of sources. Just map it out and get familiar with them and start, say, understanding who are the top companies in China. And I think that will give you a very, that will enrich your experience. As you just walk around Qingdao, if you can recognize brand and say, I know this brand, this is a software brand or something. So, and I think many of these companies have businesses in India. So I think maybe those of you who have worked there and you come back, you need to develop some contact with them, because that will help your institute as a sort of institution to develop linkages. And these people are very open to networking. Chinese have never refused an opportunity to network. So if you maintain contact and also give them some kind of a help, say, it's as you said, gone cheap.
Yeah.
You just use your connection. I spent a few months in your company, so you need to give them back, and they'll keep you, they'll keep you in sort of their radar, and I think that will go a long term. Because otherwise, it's very difficult to leverage these 2 months that you spent, because it's too short. I mean, it's just too short. It's just like a drop in the ocean. So you need to make that the first few steps of a long-term journey with these companies. And Hire, for example, has 2 joint ventures in India. One of them is very successful, the other one is a little. CSR is now competing, it's a merged entity with CNR. So they are now competing with the Japanese for rail. Hanma has been trying to replicate TBA cable strategy. So you need to understand what these companies are doing in India. So that, I think, that's just my 2 cents.
As an adjunct to that, I would add that when you land up in front of a company, if you are able to show to that company that you know who they are, you know what they are doing, you know what they are doing in India, then they take you more seriously, because they will say, hey, these guys have done their homework. जैसे हिंदी में कहते हैं कि ये धोए हुए मुले के जैसे नहीं आए हैं. They have done their homework. They know who we are. They know what are our connections. They know what we are doing in the country. It's exactly as he said. It's a way of projecting yourselves as knowledgeable, number one, and number two, as people who have prepared for the meeting. If you simply land up and say, hey, I'm here, I'd like to help, what can I do? But if you show that you have a degree of knowledge about that entity, then they say that this is a person who has already done some research, done a little study. This is the kind of person we are looking for. And you have to be street smart about these things. Now, for how many years have you been going to Ocean University? 4 years?
Yes.
Am I right?
Yes.
Okay. Now, let me ask you a question. What has happened to your MBA graduates, your cohort of the first year and the second year? Have any of them ended up working with companies that have any Chinese connections? Number one. And number two, if they are not, why not? For example, as far as I know, you are the only IIM and probably the only MBA entity in India that has a consistent program which is 4 years old. Now, you have hidden your light under a bushel. At the Institute of Chinese Studies, we have not known about you until quite recently. Am I right, Arvind?
Yes.
I tried to do a little bit of mapping of India-China connections, and I'm afraid IIM Shillong did not figure that because you've not done your homework and we've also not done our homework. So I'm not blaming you. We've also failed in making our connections with all of you. And while I'm speaking, let me add, you see, the way things work is that relationships advance through actions. If we land up here, we now go and talk about you to other people. And that enlarges the circle of connections, circle of influence that you have and we have. You may not know that at the Institute of Chinese Studies, we publish a journal. Alka has been editor of the journal for 8 years, 9 years. It is 52 years old. It's one of the few journals in the world, that is 52 years old, that has focused largely on one country, although we also covered East Asia. But the title of our journal is China Report. Now, why don't any of you, your faculty, why don't you write for us in the journal? That's another way of making yourselves known to a global community. And I'm the book review editor. Why don't any of you ever write a book review for us? You have access to books on China. You have a program on China. So you read books on China. And I invite your faculty. Why the hell don't you write a book review? That way you will be better known and we will be better known because we will be also connectors with other people. Because this journal of ours is very widely read around the world. Our publisher, Sage, this is a commentary on the way companies operate. This may shock you, my friend. Sage does not tell us how many copies they sell around the world. They don't show us their distribution list. They say this is our confidential information. It's our journal. We produce the bloody thing. And they don't tell us who are our readers. They only write a check for a royalty and we have no means of checking whether that is authentic royalty or not because we don't even know how many copies. I mean, bare number. 700 copy jati hai, 1000 copy jati hai. We have no idea. Anyway, this is how the word spreads around. Thank you very much.
Just to add, China Report has the largest circulation outside India. So, just to add what Ambassador Rana said. Well, 2 points to make over here. One is I don't see, except Agility, any logistical company here, and hospitality. These are the two areas where the Chinese are heavily investing in India. All your jobs are coming in that area. 99%. So keep an eye on that. Second suggestion is all about management, B schools. We have a trend or fashion, you can call it. You have to pick up 1 or 2 case studies. Make a group out of 16, 4 groups. Each group will do 1 case study in 1 year, which is very important. Take Hire, what Santosh was referring to, or ZTH. ZTH even have a software company. And apart from 2 companies you mentioned, ZTH is a software company based out of Nanjing. The software company is based in ZTH. Take that, do a study, thorough study of about 3 months, publish a case about not much, 30, 40 pages, which
Do you have any Chinese case studies? Have you prepared any? Why not?
So case study is the best way of. It's a repository. You study whatever you're studying. I mean, I see
Because
you
your
have,
case studies then will be borrowed by other people.
Exactly.
You become famous.
and you have put the whole curriculum in the PPT. It is so good. It's heavy. I mean, for me, it's that I have a lag of 1.5 seconds when I was looking at it. I mean, it was so heavy actually. You can make it more realistic by taking not much, 4 cases. I mean, we have about more than 300 companies plus something Chinese companies in India. Take 4 companies, that's it. And next batch will take 4. Next batch will take 4. And they are based out of India. I mean, Indian branches. Go visit them. It hardly takes about a couple of days. It will give you more strength. That is what I can say.
How do these internships happen?
Well, a partner university takes care of it, and that's the reason why we are mostly confined around Qingdao.
I think that we have a moral duty, like I see what director was proposing with Ambassador Sir was saying. We have bucket full of companies, contacts. Now Santosh is also in, which we might refer to you
Thank you very
and
much.
give more references to.
So maybe your internships can be more proactive.
Right.
See, because in a sense, we at the institute, until we had a chat in that chalet in what was it, Yak Restaurant, or what was it? Whatever it was.
Zen.
Zen. Oh, Zen and Yak were both kind of connected, which have 3 letters. Anyway, so we got some ideas from Santosh. For example, for a person like Santosh, why not reach out to Chinese hospitality companies and persuade them to come to India? Because one of the biggest areas in which there is lack of traction is tourism. Chinese tourists hesitate to come to India. In the whole of Delhi, I've seen one small neon sign hotel that also has its Chinese name.
On the highway
On
from
the
Gurgaon to
Right, the capital hotel or something.
There are a few more.
There are a few more.
There in Gurgaon.
So things are changing. But if you had a Chinese hotel company group that invests in India, it will change the face of inflow of Chinese tourists because they feel comfortable to be in an environment which is their own. In this aside to all the sorry.
One last suggestion. I think I'm taking too much of time.
That's fine.
With reference to once me and director went to Ministry of Commerce, they have lots of good ideas, and with Modi in place, I mean, Modi keeps on giving many ideas actually, but the problem is with the ministry, they don't have takers, they don't own
He
it.
implements that.
Yeah, I know. So they have come up with a concept which we thought we should own it. We started doing serious thinking over that, and Ministry of Commerce was told, I mean, we don't know how to take up this India year, tourism year. So we want to model it. I mean, how can that happen? So when the Chinese come, they're very sensitive about food, sensitive about the hotels. If you don't provide them, there's a problem. There is a connectivity issues also. So if they want to go to both Gaya, if they want to go to Sarnath, not far, Varanasi, they don't know how to go. So this can be another model or case for you to prepare one complete package and in association with ICS and submit to the ministry saying that okay, this is what the feasibility study is, this is how we can do it. Ministry of Tourism doesn't have any clue actually. Ministry of Commerce no. So I mean, the government is funding, you are the government institution, right? But then you should also give them something saying that okay, we are here, we are the partner institute, and then we have done something like this. Very, very active.
Can I just take you to a slide more on current trends? So the first 5 or 6 slides is one on current trends.
So the earlier points actually talk about the Western countries.
Ah.
Yeah, and the below points are about
So-
the, yeah, so that distinction is not there.
Yeah, so do that
Yeah, yeah.
because it's something that
Yeah.
seems what trends.
Yeah.
So